Well, let me open up by saying thank you all for all being here. I'm Randy Weber, Congressman from the 14th District of Texas. We appreciate y'all coming here. I've got Representative Luttrell behind me. I've got staff from his office and Dan Crenshaw's office here with us today. And I know that the other members of the Texas delegation wishes they could be here, but everything is so busy and so crazy right now. But this is an issue that is extremely pervasive in the Houston area, and I don't have to tell you all that. Y'all are getting a lot of the same questions, comments, complaints that we are. So we stand here today before the Missouri City United States Post Office, a facility within which there are many, many, many delayed packages. But none capture the urgency of this matter more than this. Somewhere in here, in this building behind me, somewhere in one of those bins is a package that a constituent of ours called our office and complained. He's a disabled veteran. This package literally has his medicine, and he's been waiting on it for weeks. We have called to check on it and cannot get any answers. He relies on the Postal Service. He relies on the Postal Service to deliver that medicine because he cannot leave his house. You know, a small business owner structures his business and the pricing of his products based on the ability to utilize the Postal Service for many of his deliveries. And when the Postal Service fails miserably in our area, such as the case here, and customers get fed up waiting on their package that seems to fall into a black hole, the small business owner, and I was a small business owner, has no choice but to compensate those customers in some kind of way. He, not the Postal Service, in that case is the one on the hook, and it's costing him money. Another constituent is just expected to wait without their heart pills or diabetes medication. This is absolutely ridiculous, and one of the main reasons we're here today. And these are only a few stories that I've heard from my constituents. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to my friend Congressman Luttrell and let him say a few words. I'm going to leave that right there.
Thank you, Congressman. Appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. I represent District 8, and our district itself is receiving hundreds, if not thousands, of emails and phone calls about this very subject. So we're here today, again, to unpack the problem. Veterans medications in general, if it's gummed up, from what we understand, and again, we're not, for what Congressman Weber says, we're not getting the answers that we want, and it is at our level. This shouldn't be the case. The United States Postal Service is responsible for not only Texans, because we're Texans, but Americans in general. So we're laser focused on this. It's front sight focus for us. And today we're coming down here and we want to get these answers. We want these answers so we can give the answers to the Texans to let them know, hey, look, this is a serious problem. And since they were unable to get what they needed when they engaged with the post office, that's our job. And today we're going to do just that. I hope as we peel this onion back, we can find out what problem set lives inside the organization. So, hey, if it's something that we can address right up front, let's keep everything moving forward. We just don't know what that is. We can't get those answers when we're engaging. So a face-to-face conversation is absolutely necessary. And we'll report back to the Texans and the American public as this thing unfolds. I'll hand it back over to Mr. Weber.
Thank you, Morgan. I appreciate that. You heard from him, stories he's getting. You heard from me, the stories I'm getting. My office has received somewhere between 100 and 200 complaints about this specific facility. Y'all know consumers can track their packages in a lot of instances, and they know right where that package is. And it's this specific, and that's just counting the ones that have called my office. You can only imagine how many complaints we're having Houston-wide, with us having 8, 9, 10 members of Congress, different offices. Every single taxpayer in the greater Houston area, and I would assume across the nation, is probably thinking, good grief, how inefficient can the Postal Service get? Well, it's getting pretty darn inefficient, it sounds like. And anyone who has stood in line at the post office for more than 5 minutes knows this to be true. And if you've ever been aggravated like me, you go on there and there's 2 or 3 lines and there's one person at the counter. And the next person, if they want to take a break, they leave. It doesn't matter how many people are standing there waiting. Taxpayers, believe it or not, have relied on the post office since the 1770s. It is an age-old institution. You would think they'd had time to get it right by now. You would think. But now the Postal Service seems to be headache after headache. Down in Galveston, which is my district, we've been dealing with ongoing mail theft for years. How many of y'all have heard about the mail theft? Thieves washing checks, where millions of dollars of checks have been stolen and washed. I've had this happen to me personally. I was a victim personally. We reached out to say, what's the status on it? What's the investigation taking place? Where are you getting? You know what we've heard back? Zip. And I'm a member of Congress. You would think we would hear back. I wrote to the USPS back in 2022 to get answers to that theft, and which absolutely continues, hadn't stopped, absolutely continues to plague our community. And guess what? I've sent letters asking questions and requesting them by a certain date. That date would almost always pass before the Postal Service would get back to a federal representative. Now, after years of trying to communicate and putting pressure on them to take action regarding mail theft, they finally assured me, my office, that they were going to add new secure collection boxes and that they would keep a close eye on employees who may be intentionally disrupting the postal system. The Postal Service's hair is on fire, but I have learned in the last couple of years that dealing with them that they don't seem to be in any hurry to address these pressing issues that are impacting Texans and indeed Americans every single day. So, we're here today to demand answers from the USPS and ensure that they work overtime to guarantee folks actually get their packages and their mail. That's a novel thought. By no means, let me make this clear, by no means am I blaming the thousands of postal workers in our area. But the reality of the situation is that the postal workers face they're being concealed, confused, or justified away by union bureaucrats who repeat the same old tired boogaboos that the Postal Service is deeply in debt and that workers have no choice but to accept massive concessions. Wrong, wrong, wrong. It's not true. This is a federal agency. This is a federal agency. An agency in the same federal government that is one of the strongest nations in the world. And are you telling me we can't even deliver the mail on time? People. FedEx delivers the mail. UPS delivers. Amazon delivers. And sadly, even the drug cartel delivers across the border, which is sad. And our United States Postal Service can't deliver. So I want to highlight what I've been told is going on at the Missouri City facility. My staff reached out to the government liaison to set up a meeting with the respective parties to discuss the ongoing issues my constituents have been having with the Postal Service. My constituents down in District 14, League City, and on down to Galveston, over to Beaumont. On January 17th, there was a congressional staff briefing. My staff asked questions regarding the state of the facility and asked for an update. As many of you already know, the quote, Delivering for America plan, end quote, the plan, according to their website, is a commitment to achieve service excellence, realize cost savings, and modernizing postal infrastructure, which they have failed on count 1, count 2, count 3. They have failed all the way around to achieve excellence. The Missouri City facility becomes a local processing center, while the North Processing and Distribution Center becomes regional. In the months since then, they have avoided our requests, given us the names of people we did not ask to meet with, attempted to dictate when, where, and how we would meet with them. And from speaking with anyone who would have personal knowledge about mail delays, zip. We had no chance to do that. And I know many of my colleagues have faced exactly the same thing, like Morgan behind me, roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. In that same January the 17th phone call, our congressional staff was promised that the issues affecting this Missouri City facility would be cleared out by the end of the weekend, meaning January 22nd at the latest. And guess what? That wasn't the case. Here we are with February the 2nd, and it still isn't, and we have no real idea when that back up will be cleared out. I have gotten the runaround from the Postal Service time and time again. And if I'm getting it as a member of Congress, I can only imagine how constituents are feeling. They seem to stonewall us. I know they're stonewalling people. I've asked for a meeting, but they can't meet because they're in training, or they just don't respond to my team when we set a date. I was supposed to have a meeting with them on Wednesday, but guess what didn't happen? That meeting, it got changed, canceled. I'm glad to hear the news that Representative Al Green shared, that the Postal Service Office of the Inspector General is auditing the postal facility in Missouri City. But we still don't seem to have answers on what they plan to do to ensure folks that they actually get their packages. This is only this is only year 3 of a 10-year rollout. Only 3 years, and they have run into serious issues they refuse to be transparent about. If it's year 3, what do you think year 4, 5, 6 and on's going to hold? It's going to be catastrophes. Accountability needs to be had at the USPS. They need to stop stonewalling representatives and instead work with us. But my staff directly asked what Congress can do to help. And here's what they said. There's nothing that Congress can do to help. And there's nothing that they need from us, if you can believe that's their response. That's unacceptable. The USPS leadership needs to take accountability for what's going on and work overtime, people. Come early, stay late, work overtime to take care of the issue. And lastly, it would be better for Postmaster General Mr. DeJoy and all of his team to remember that their customers are those who use and pay for the Postal Service, not the institution itself. This is about American citizens. And with that, I will stop and I will open up for any questions.
Congressman, just how frustrating is it that as members of Congress, you could actually do something about this and you can't get a single answer from them?
Adam, it's extremely frustrating. Imagine that we represent people and we are their federal representative, whether it's USPS, whether it's hopefully it's not the FBI or IRS and some of the agencies, Social Security Administration. So we try to be their liaison between. And here we're getting stonewalled worse than any other agency that I can remember. It's very frustrating. Any other questions?
You said you don't blame the postal workers. Who do you blame for this? Does it go all the way to the top? Is it DeJoy?
Well, remember I said sometimes the union representatives, they stonewall. A lot of times they want their time off. We talked earlier about people going into a building and there being only one worker on the counter. They have 2 or 3 lines, and if there's 2 or 3 workers, somebody's break comes up, they're going to adhere to those rules, and they're going to disregard what the need is. But yes, it goes all the way to the top. Mr. DeJoy needs to recognize that what's the old famous Apollo 13 saying? Houston, we have a problem. And apparently he's not seeing it, and he's not doing anything about it. And for us to get stonewalls, not even have meetings, I'm glad that Al Green and I think Sylvia Garcia went to see him. But I've heard those promises before. We want action.
I got something for that one. Yeah. I've been engaging with my carriers in my district, and there's a gray area, it seems like, between leadership and into the services itself. It looks like there's a breakdown in communication back and forth, and we don't know how that's playing out again because we can't get the answers. I spoke with Mr. Green directly, Ms. Fletcher, Ms. Lee. Everyone is very aware of the situation and trying to unpack it again and break down the silos so we can fix the problem. Again, it's why we're here today, and we're hoping that this is not going to be drug out for an extended period of time. But as soon as we get the answers, that's the only way we're going to be able to actually solve the problem.
You mentioned your Democratic colleagues. How are the Houston delegation working together, across the aisle on this issue?
Personally, for me, I'm engaging with them every single day, and especially in the past week. Mr. Green's very adamant about this. I speak to him directly, face-to-face on the House floor, as well as Ms. Lee, Ms. Fletcher. I'm really taking red and blue out of this equation, and this is just a problem set that we all are addressing.
We can actually work together, believe it or not. You don't see that in the news, but y'all can report that if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'll say that. We work very well together.
We do.
And this is, especially on this problem.
You mentioned the carriers. I imagine this creates an unsafe situation for them because people are frustrated. That's who they can talk to.
Well, they're on the receiving end.
Yeah.
So they're the ones that there's one that the people see.
Yeah, they're unfairly getting that.
Again, you said it right. Don't kill the messenger. Unfortunately, they're the ones that are engaging with the Texans, especially in this area. We're doing our very best in conversations to say, hey, look, we're trying to solve this problem at the highest level and down into the organization. And everybody that's listening to us, please understand that the young lady or the young man knocking on your front door that's supposed to have your package or at the post office, it's just not directly correlated to that specific individual. It's a systematic problem set. You don't ever want to hear the word "be patient," because we say that all the time, and unfortunately, and I don't want that to be a conditioned response. Again, we're trying to streamline this in a way that makes it more effective.
Good points. So, yes, sir.
Just with primary elections coming up, what impact do you think these problems could have?
Is there an election coming up soon? Something about it, huh?
Well, okay, I'm going to speak from Oregon only. This is not an election problem. This is just a problem.
Yeah.
Okay, this is, I don't care who you're voting for or where you, for me, that's not an issue. This is just a problem that we need to fix.
So just with ballot by mail, I guess, folks sending the mail ballots, could there be issues?
Okay,
with
we could get, if you want to get down into, there you go. Okay, so yes, if we're getting down into the weeds on it, sure enough, as we move into closer to the election cycle, that's something that that is not a conversation we need to have around election time. We're like, hey, I didn't get my vote in. Okay, so again, while we're standing here.
Yeah.
Well, have you guys had any chance to speak to the governor, or maybe is there any opportunity to go to Washington and maybe speak to a bigger crowd about this issue? I mean, it seems like it's impacting the Houston area, but pretty soon it could be a nationwide problem.
What we need to do is we need to get Mr. Joy called into a committee hearing. I'm on Energy and Commerce. You're on, what's the other
Armed
issue?
Services.
Armed Services, yeah.
So
and so we can call him in because we have a purview over the ENC committee does. If he'll come, but you remember what I said earlier, we've asked for meetings, and obviously some of our colleagues got a meeting with Mr. Joy. Now, getting him in front of the cameras and having him raise his right hand and swear in to do a hearing is different, So we'll see, but that certainly is our tact. Back to Adam's question about elections, I wasn't thinking about the mail-in ballots, but Morgan hit it out of the park. I mean, you don't want to hear that during elections because then it's way too late.
And Mr. Abbott, Mr. Patrick, and our senators, Mr. Abbott, they've got a very large problem set they're dealing with that they need to be primarily focused on. At our level, and I'm Cornyn and Cruz are very well aware of this situation too. So again, it's congressional memberships that's acting on this.
Yeah.
It has been disseminated, and just because you have the two of us standing here doesn't mean that every member of the Texas delegation isn't aware of it.
Yeah. And we're going to ask for a meeting. When we conclude here, I'm going to go right in there for a tour. I'm going to say, can I have a tour of this facility? So anybody want to place any bets on that? So we're going to try to get a tour. All right. Any other questions? Thank y'all all for being here today.